the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the business of esports. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, I want to thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the 5-star ratings and reviews, all the love you give the podcast. It's humbling. I promise we read all of them. If you haven't yet, do 2 things for me. Go leave a 5-star rating and review on the podcast, and share the podcast with a friend, a colleague, someone you know who's interested in gaming in general. We really appreciate it. That's how the podcast has continued to grow. Jimmy, how you doing this week?
Hey Paul, doing great. Really excited for our show today. Super excited for the live show that we have recording after this as well. For those of you that know, and for those that don't, every Wednesday, 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern, we do a live news show where we talk about all the week's hottest, trends, events, headlines with a round table of industry experts, and of course we get your comments and your questions during the show live as well. So that's always fun. And I don't know, Paul. I just feel like right now the news this week and last week are just so insane, right? It's just going to be a really fun discussion to hear all the different angles, perspectives of everything going on right now. I don't want to tease too much, but if you haven't been a part of the live show, definitely show up. I think you guys are going to love it.
It's always a good time. I always like to ask you though how your gaming week has been, because this week the stuff that I've been watching, at least on Twitch this week, is everyone playing the not so new expansion for World of Warcraft, right? Like the re-release of Wrath of the Lich King. Obviously, I watch a lot of the OTK guys who are playing it. But have you managed, like, you're this is not going to get you back into this, won't get you into WoW, right?
I
There's
played
no new customers that they're going to get from this.
I mean, that's the key, right? Is the new customer. I don't think they're going to attract anyone new that they don't already have. It's a nostalgia play, right? It's come relive what you loved 15 years ago because we haven't done anything unique since then. I
So
had
how
so
far
much
do you
fun.
go? How
Hmm?
far do you go back? Like, meaning, how far should they go with it? You think they should re-release every expansion they ever made?
No, I think they should release new content, new IP. I think they should release WoW Mobile that they canceled after dropping who knows how many tens of millions in development. Um, but no, I mean they're not going to get me back for it. I played the last re-release. What was it, Vanilla, and that was pretty fun. I know you got pretty into that as well. And then I
Mhm.
said, okay, well, I've got a family and a wife, and I need to do things. So unfortunately, didn't have enough time to continue down that rabbit hole. I
But
did
it's a
reinstall.
fascinating, like,
Hmm.
business story, because I really am curious what they're
Yeah.
thinking in terms of how far they're gonna go, right? Like, do you re-release every expansion to present day, and then what do you do? Do you go back and start over again? Like,
I would imagine this was already in the works before the Microsoft acquisition, right? So maybe it was too far to pull the plug, or they just agreed with that strategy and that runway. But yeah, I can't honestly. I just can't see them re-releasing everything. That's so lazy.
well,
What?
and you have to think that the pool of users is getting smaller, right?
Right.
Meaning, if 5 million people played classic WoW, some smaller percentage will have continued probably with Burning Crusade, and some smaller percentage will, right? Like, meaning, the
Yep.
I feel like the audience who's there for the nostalgia gets smaller and smaller. It's not like you bring in someone brand new who's like, yeah, I really want to get into replaying old expansions, even though I didn't play the first 2 or something, right? Like,
But that number has to be enough to justify the cost, right?
There's
Of
zero
them
cost. I think this
redeveloping.
is why
Yeah.
I'm like, I think
Yeah.
they're just gonna keep milking this. I truly think there's probably no cost to any of this. And if they're gonna re-release, make something different. I'm amazed that
Yes.
they're again, they could, and this is a perfect segue into our amazing guest this week. Why not do all of the in-game items as NFTs all of a sudden, right? Just because something new. Re-release classic WoW, but everything you earn in game is an NFT.
If you could own your WoW armor and then put that on your avatar in the metaverse, wouldn't that be the dream, right? Because that's the whole point of wearing the
I
armor
know.
around.
My frost saber
Yeah.
mount. There's a few thousand hours in that. It's like, come on.
That's the WoW world I want to live in one day.
That is a good segue. We've got amazing guests this week who are here to talk about things like NFT and crypto and Web3 and all the stuff that they are experts in. We have none other on the show today, Ivan Kahn and Jeffrey Maganis. Both are co-founders of Crowdcreate. Crowdcreate's a marketing agency for this gaming Web3 world. I will let them talk about it. Ivan, Jeffrey, welcome to the Business of Esports podcast.
Thank you for having us. Pretty excited.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Jimmy.
Guys, for those who don't know you, I'd love a little bit of your backgrounds, how you got into gaming in general or doing what you're doing today, and a little bit of the Crowdcreate story, like what you guys actually do.
Sounds good. So as an introduction, Crowdcreate. So we're a leading marketing agency that specializes in blockchain technology, crypto, NFTs, gaming, Web3. We've been doing this since 2017, have gone through multiple bear and bull markets, and we're one of the few firms that are still around. So we basically provide the strategies on how to build, grow, and scale your crypto project. And in terms of how Ivan and I met, we went to college together, grew up playing Super Smash Brothers in our college apartments, and it was a lot of fun. So
I can share with you those when you're supposed to be studying for your final exam, you're actually, doing some battling in Super Smash Brothers. And it even goes, I remember, when we first started playing games, it was like Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was the game of our generation. And that was like, you go to those like computer cafes, you'd spend more time than you'd admit at those places. But yeah, it's been an exciting ride. And I see that the gaming and esports world are starting to embrace crypto, blockchain, but more specifically like the NFT side, fractionalized ownerships, bringing avatars exactly like what you're talking between games. So it's pretty exciting in that, if this were to work, you could bring over those armors that you have from World of Warcraft to those new expansions. And that's kind of the dream. Then bring it to the metaverse, hang out for New Year's and come back to your World of Warcraft. But just a quick introduction. Yeah, we met in college. In terms of games, I've always been a casual gamer, fascinated with, StarCraft. That was probably my high school days. Most recently, jumping back into some games, casual gamer, played Stray, looking forward to Starfield because I'm a space NASA kind of guy. And so that really fascinates me.
Guys, what was the impetus for Crowdcreate? Like, what was the thing that made you guys decide you wanted to get into building an agency around, call it this new world? And in 2017, a lot of this stuff was really less familiar to most people. So what made you guys decide?
Yeah, so in 2017 is when we entered the crypto space. So I'd actually rewind that a little further, and we started the company in 2014. So in 2014, we ran crowdfunding campaigns. So if you're familiar with Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and just the concept of building communities behind passionate projects. So in 2014, we launched the first wireless earbud before Apple AirPods came out. And it was kind of like,
Cool.
is this even possible? Can I go running without wires like, dangling out of my head? And so that was kind of the beginning, and hence the name Crowdcreate, because, if you can build a community with a crowd, they can solve humanity's biggest problems, from, creating the first wireless earbud, or to, decentralized fractional ownership of real estate, or even, financing mechanisms for people around the world, like new countries just coming onto blockchain. So yeah, that's kind of our entry point.
And how did you pivot from that to doing more like because crowdfunding is one thing. This is very financing focused, even though I know today this is one of the services you provide, right? Like financing, raising money for companies and projects. But how do you go from that to sort of really being, one of the major leaders on the crypto marketing side? Like how did you decide to go all in on that? And again, what was sort of that moment where the decision seemed obvious to you guys?
Yeah. So we've always been on the cusp of emerging technologies. Back in 2014, as Ivan mentioned, Kickstarter and Indiegogo was revolutionary that an entrepreneur can literally take an idea, post it to a crowdfunding platform, and raise capital to build out the future, to live their dreams. And we realized that there's millions of people that wanted to support and be a part of this bigger vision. And so in 2017, we started learning about the Ethereum ICO, and the ICO craze kind of happened. And it was used as this fundraising mechanism to jumpstart projects. I mean, there was a machine learning, deep AI. There was also the future of gaming. And so we've always been attracted by these just passionate entrepreneurs and builders in what's now like the metaverse and Web3 and whatnot. And so we realized that, that they say the future of the internet is going to be on like Web3, metaverse, and this new infrastructure. And so we kind of went all in on it.
So it sounds like, guys. Oh, sorry, Paul. I mean,
No,
it
go ahead,
sounds like
Jimmy.
again, the inspiration here being cultivating communities right around innovative technologies and emerging industries. As far as Crowdcreate as a company and the services, we've kind of hinted at a few different pillars now. Would love to get not just now the inspiration behind it, but rather the 3, 4, 5 areas that you guys really operate in, the services that you're providing, a little bit more structure to now, these themes and these interests that you've kind of outlined for us.
Yeah, so I can share, just to rewind it just back a little bit, but the moment we jumped into the crypto space, like one of the strengths here at Crowdcreate is that we kind of do a deep dive. We figure things out, and especially for these like cutting edge industries where it's brand new, it really takes leadership to just seriously just figure it out. It is changing almost on the weekly. It's like the only way you can figure it out is if you hire people that are specific to the industry, that are just lovers of the industry, or you just have this like genuine curiosity to just figure things out. So in 2017, when we first jumped into crypto, I remember I was like, Jeff, I'm going to build a mining rig. And literally, like, I watched like how many 50 YouTube videos, and like, like 7 GPUs later, I literally had an Ethereum mining rig sitting in my WeWork office because WeWork has free electricity. So the team's like, that
Very
thing is
clever.
way too loud and way too hot. I'm like, this is the future. Just let it be. But yeah, so that's kind of the the ethos behind what we do. We really figure out how these industries work, how these communities are being built. When it comes to those pillars, I'd really like to focus on a few where we've seen it growing. And I'm going to kind of use broad words and then kind of do a deeper dive into it. But the first one would be influencers. So this could be people with some sort of influence. They have an existing community. So over the years, we've built up these relationships. And influencers, it's been around for a while. E-commerce brands, mommy bloggers, you have health and wellness. But in the crypto space, who are the influencers is a little different. So this could be like, if you're familiar with the industry, like NFT alpha groups. So we have alpha groups. We have people on Discord with, they have their own following, or they're even like Patreon groups could be the same. We have Twitter spaces. We have traditional YouTube and Twitter influencers. So that all falls under the pillar of what an influencer is. So that's one of the main pillars. The second pillar is really PR, right? So we are official partners with major publications like Cointelegraph. We've been working with these crypto Web3 specific publications for a very long time now. So, get your brand out there, get your project out there. PR is one of the major pillars. And the third one is community building. So I kind of saved this one for last because it is a rather large pillar. It's the one that holds all the NFT crypto projects up of today. And you just look at the gaming community, like like what you were talking about, Paul, earlier, like these Twitch streams, like they have massive followings. I forget the name of the one influencer, but he just came out with a mouse, an RGB mouse, and he literally sold out bajillions.
Tens.
Yeah, tens. I keep forgetting his name, but he literally like dropped his mouse and his like, I mean, I watch his stuff occasionally. He's a pretty funny guy, but like incredible, like the power of these communities. So that's our third pillar, where we help these projects build their community. It could live in Discord, it could live on Twitter, it can live in the real life or in the metaverse. But you know, that encompasses things like, you know, social media management, community management, offline events, conference appearances. So that's where I would fit those three pillars in here at Crowdcreate.
Yeah.
I mean, the cool thing is those three pillars are very much like interconnected also, right? Like the community, PR, influencer, these things, there's overlap between these three pillars, right? They're definitely not standalone in my mind.
Yeah. So Paul, at the core of it is really strategy. And so we're under NDA with some very large game publishers and companies, but basically, whether they're a traditional Web 2 or even just game from our childhood, they now want to get into Web3, NFTs, and crypto, and they just want to understand the landscape. And then we basically, you know, introduce them to strategic partners, the right, you know, influencers or people of influence, you know, because also developers, different gamers, they're of influence. And then also, how do you do your messaging, which PR outlets and news publications you want to align with? We make the recommendation to our clients to your podcast and say, you know, Paul and Jimmy are great people to really share your voice or messaging, who you want to attract to your platform. And that's ultimately what we do at the high level. It's just, okay, this is the new technology. How does it all work? Who should we work with, et cetera?
And to be able to do that, you guys really need to understand the entire ecosystem, right? And not only that, but the subtleties of it. And this is sort of where I want to go with this conversation, because I think the intersection between gaming and crypto is particularly interesting, but there have been sort of stops and starts here, right? Like things that have worked, things that have not. I mean, the sort of the TLDR is Web3 games are probably attracting more money even today with so-called crypto winter than any other gaming companies on the planet, right? Like crypto, like Web3 games are raising a ton of money. There's a ton of excitement and hype around it. Do you guys think, this is the future? Is it sustainable? Do you think that this is the crypto world latching on to gaming? Like, how do you guys look at, and then particularly, sorry to put a lot of questions all in one, you know, your relationships with the publishers is interesting because as you're helping them navigate this world, right? Like, what is the advice to them? What is the advice you're giving them on, you know, Web3 gaming as it pertains to their very traditional gaming business?
Yeah, I can tackle this one, and Jeff, feel free to chime in. But you know, for me, when you ask, you know, is Web3 just latching on to the you know, the gaming industry? I would say the gaming industry it's literally the future. Like our economies, our entire entertainment, everything is going to live inside of the gaming sphere. You know, I see I have like nieces and nephews, and they're playing games left and right. They're picking up like, you know, verbal cues or even like slogans from games. Like they live on Twitch. They're watching. Sometimes they're not even playing games. They're just watching games. So I do feel like the next entire generation is going to have some gaming type aspect, and even like metaverses. Those are essentially gamified experiences. And so in my opinion, I don't think that the crypto world is just kind of latching on to the gaming lead. In fact, a lot of the projects are from the traditional gaming world, which I would call in many cases the Web 2 world, and they're picking up Web 3 points. For example, I don't know if you saw, I'm pretty sure you saw the game Ni no Kuni. So
Yeah.
Ni no Kuni, this is Hayao Miyazaki's studio, did a collab, and there's a massive blockchain component under the hood. So I'm seeing more and more kind of gaming companies move into the Web3 space. Another example, I don't know if you saw this project called Ready Player Me, but they just raised a massive amount of funding.
Huge
But
round. Yep.
huge round led by, I think it was Andreessen, but
Andreessen.
they are pushing cross-game avatars. So a lot of times these Web3 companies are building things that sit on a layer above that games can integrate with, for example, the avatar system. But yeah, I think that's a long answer for your question. But yeah, Jeff, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, good though. You really hit it, Paul, in terms of a lot of these projects are raising capital, and is this sustainable? We believe that Web3 and the metaverse will be invisible the same way that we are using the internet today, and we are in the early stages of the internet. But we don't really think about the back end of this call, but it's using these protocols, these frameworks, the technology in terms of connecting us together, audio and video. And you also mentioned the start and stop that has been going on. And that's really, from a strategy standpoint, when we talk to our clients, for better or for worse, it's been an experiment. It's been a learning lesson where all the lessons in this last play to earn phase of crypto and gaming that has happened, projects have learned from it and have iterated. And as of now, it's being called play and own, which is, we grew up playing video games, but how cool would it be if the skin, like you mentioned in the introduction, if I still own the skin that I was using back when I was a kid or college, and I could take that character and put it into the next game, which is the promise of Web3 and asset ownerships, that I could take my character from Super Smash Brothers and maybe put it into Grand Theft Auto, or put it into the next car racing game, and on, and you can carry those with you. And yeah.
I'm curious, Jeff, and feel free to expand upon this, but just since you had brought it up, obviously without specific reference to any of your clients, because as you mentioned, under NDA and certain projects, best not, specifically addressed. But when you're consulting for these developers or for these larger clients of yours, and you mentioned kind of being those relationship makers for them, being advisors and experts in the space, specifically with regard now to play and earn, play and own, what have you, digital ownership of goods. What are you noticing as far as preferences, as far as what kind of questions are you answering specifically? Are these developers really interested in allowing ownership of an in-game skin so that they can buy and sell within that game's economy? Are you seeing a lot of them that want that skin or those digital items to be usable outside of that game and in other metaverses or in other digital environments? I'm just curious, more specifically, I suppose, some of those conversations that you guys are having.
Yeah, so there's multiple partners in the ecosystem. So on one side is, well, there's the VC investor. And so we get projects asking us, what are VC investors looking at currently? And so, with that, actually talented Web2 gaming developers that know how to build projects and titles that people actually want to play. That's the biggest sustainability of it all, is a great experience. And so that's what projects ask us. And then projects ask us also from the users, the influencers, and the true gamers out there. What are they looking at? And that's typically a easy onboarding. Say, for example, a sustainable, getting really technical into the tokenomics, a sustainable economy where it is not just dependent on new users, but of the existing ecosystem, how they interact with it, how they trade and whatnot. And the whole idea of skins, right, have been extremely popular in current days. But the features that you can actually, I don't know if you've seen that, you can lend your skin to somebody to use in the game in the same way you have a rental investment property and you take a percentage ownership on it. There's the technical capability now that you would be able to lend it out. They use it for in-game play. You make revenues and royalties. And so the Web3 is bridging entertainment, finance, asset ownership, automation, smart contracts. And the future is just getting started for this.
Do you guys not think that the big AAA game publishers will fight this? Or at least, they may give it lip service initially, but really they want to maintain sort of their, closed ecosystems because they think they can make more money that way. Like, how do you feel about sort of the incentives for the big game developers today to sort of see and buy into the future that you guys are painting?
Yeah, so I know for these big game developers, like, I mean, it's everybody knows who they are, but a lot of them have tried to embrace like Web3 and NFTs, and the problem is it's both. So essentially, these gaming studios, they have these walled gardens. Like, they want you to stay inside their ecosystem. They don't want, to jump to even like the rendering engines, right? They want you to stay on Unreal. They don't want you to move to Unity. They want you to stay in there. And sometimes they have their own proprietary rendering engine. So like intrinsically these game studios have an incentive to keep you on there. PlayStation wants you to stay on PlayStation. They don't want you to move to Xbox. So that is something that we have spoken to a lot of publishers, and they're still trying to figure this out. It's very challenging because, like the earlier topic I said, some of them have tried coming out the gates, and then the fans, respond, in some cases negatively. And so they're trying to walk this fine line in that they have this really strong audience and community, but that community hasn't really turned on to these new like fractionalized ownership structures. So that's why we're seeing the older game publishers go a little bit slower, and it's actually giving a big opportunity for startups like Ready Player Me to build a module that sits on top, and it could be integrated into the Xbox avatar system. So I see it as there's an opportunity, but I am seeing, let's say, from these big publishers, they are turning it on slowly. Like Kuni, that's a good example. But the blockchain aspect was kind of like a secondary thought, but
Yep.
it is built in, and they're trying to build up this like, hey, now you can bring your character to the next, the next iteration of the game. But it is like what Jeff was saying, the whole industry is kind of experimenting right now. We're in an experimental phase, and I can tell you, we're having a lot of talks with these major publishers, and they are just as concerned about like their community that they own and how it's going to react to new changes like these.
Can we dive into that community aspect for a second? Because we've on the podcast we've had discussions around studies that have been done that show a majority of gamers, like I think the study we saw was a YouGov study where 56% of gamers would give up their traditional bank for a crypto wallet, right? And so you look at that study and you conclude there's a lot of overlap, right? There's a lot of gamers who are also crypto enthusiasts, or at least open to it. And so how do you guys sort of take that and match it up to sort of at least the empirical evidence, which seems like a lot of gamers have rejected at least some of the in-game NFT stuff, right? Like Ubisoft had quite a bit of backlash. Like how do you explain these two communities? Are they the same? Are they different? How do you guys look at them?
In terms of how we look at them for every project, it typically starts with very like first principles thinking. And some of the backlash that we've seen across the industry, if players felt that it was a cash grab, that there was this part where they were being taken advantage of. In the world of Web3, it's all about being inclusive, about going back to the original question was these AAA game publishers. At the core of it, we're actually pitching them, and we refine our pitch and we give them tons of ideas. And at the core, what they really want to do is engage new audiences and activate their existing audiences with new experiences. And over COVID, there was virtual concerts and whatnot. But in terms of like these communities, are they mutually exclusive, or are they one and the same? And really, how do you bring those together? It's an art, it's a delicate balance, and doing it with authenticity is that we've seen has worked really well in terms of storytelling, collaborating with different artists in the industry. But yeah, community building, it's very much art in terms of how do you do that, and how do you understand from your user what they want, how to give them a better experience with the technology that's available.
So you agree with that data point, right? That the gaming community and crypto communities are essentially the same, or at least share a lot of similar interests, right? They're not It's not oil and water here, right?
No. The way I see it, it's almost like a Venn diagram. So you have these, two big circles. You have the Web3 decentral world, and you have the gaming community. There's this cross section, the pie that sits in between. But the problem is it's essentially it falls into what Jeff shared earlier. Until the technology becomes so easy to use that it disappears into the background, it will not fully overlap. And that being said, like let's say right now I have a casual gamer. I don't know, say my niece, she's like 10, she just turned 10. Imagine how hard is it for her to create a Ledger wallet and like figure out how, let's say even easier, a MetaMask app instantly. It's too difficult. I don't know how she's going to memorize so many address characters, but it's just not as easy to onboard. Like, let's say you play a game, or I just bought her a Tamagotchi for Christmas, and like, how easy is it? You just turn it on, put in your name, boom, you're feeding this pet, you're training it, you're doing, but then now you add an extra layer, and it's like, okay, now I gotta get a wallet. I gotta figure out my keys. I gotta write these like 16 words down in a secret place that I will never lose. Like the levels of complexity, just that's the reason why that massive, there's not a full overlap, because the difficulty of just getting your foot into the crypto space is still there. I think the whole industry is kind of adapting. It's getting better. I mean, we have like shorteners for Ethereum addresses. Samsung, every single Samsung phone that you have has a hardware wallet. I don't know if you saw in the news, but Samsung is announcing in 2023 that they're going to be announcing an exchange. So like, imagine that you already have a phone, you're already playing mobile games on it. It already has a crypto wallet, and now there's an exchange built in. So hardware partners, technology partners, they're kind of filling in the blanks. But as of right now, those both of those audiences are technology enthusiasts, like absolutely. But where it comes down to what they cross is like, hey, am I willing to go that extra step and create, X, Y, and Z just to have this experience? That's where it's currently falling apart.
That's
I
interesting.
wanted to add one more variable to this, Paul, because this is really interesting when we're talking about gaming communities, crypto communities, now differences in ages, right, and technology, bridging that gap. One more variable, guys, based off of the projects that you've done in different parts of the world, how is geography coming into play now in different regions? Are the communities, do they have similar interests, similar hesitations? Are they addressed in completely different ways? Would love your insight now, taking it one step further.
Yeah, those different regions, like let's just say for like United States, like it's pretty clear like these AAA games are embracing it really, really well. But let's say in like, especially in places where the mechanisms or even like the cost of living is different, they're embracing different types of gameplay or projects. So a good example that I share is like Axie Infinity. Like it absolutely caught fire in Southeast Asia, because the value, that token stays the same. You have one currency, it's the same, but it goes so much further in, let's say, Philippines. And so the value of you playing that game or adopting this new game, you're getting a lot more than, let's say, a casual gamer in United States, because that reward mechanism you're getting is so much less. So part of it is like the financial mechanisms and what the reward is, but also other regions have different norms that they do. And I'm going to kind of give an example to color, but let's say I just had a project in Africa pitch me their project, and I was like, they're saying that the main technology is called SMS bridging. I was like, what is SMS bridging? Like, why is that in a financial model? Like, I just go to the app and I send money. He's like, no, in Africa, like you have to send a text to a bank, enter in some codes, enter in the code of your friend, and that's how you send money. Like it's all through SMS. And so countries, like they have their own nuances, and that's one of the challenges of like approaching a new region.
Can I, you mentioned Axie Infinity, guys. You've worked with some of the biggest names in Web3, like Axie Infinity and Animoca and Sandbox, right? Like the sort of the who's who of everyone in Web3 and Web3 gaming. Is there anything you can talk about in terms of success stories, or some of the things you've done with some of these clients that have been tremendous successes? Anything that we can get insight for our audience from any of these?
Yeah, I can share one insight, and I can kind of give it at a broad strokes. But let's say Sandbox. So Sandbox is a metaverse experience, and what they have been able to do very, very well recently is they're activating well-known influencers, and I kind of go through them what it looks like. But they're not just doing like, hey, shout outs or hey, wear my t-shirt, right? They're actually creating experiences inside of their metaverse. So for example, Snoop Dogg, he has, not only is he, talking about it, but he has his own mansion. I think Paris Hilton recently just did the same thing. So they're creating the brand partnership, but they're also creating an in-game experience so you can come and experience it on your own. We were also involved with Sandboxes. They did it in real life kind of get together. They had an NFT exhibit at a Beverly Hills mansion, and so they're kind of crossing the borders, and that they're not just a metaverse company, but they're bridging it. They're having experiences in the real life. They're bringing real life people into the metaverse. So these kind of like transitions, and you see, and kind of what Jeff was saying, like it's bringing audiences that have not been traditionally in the metaverse world into it by building inside the metaverse world. And yeah, it's all about the experience.
Guys, how has this so-called crypto winter affected your business? Like, what has changed for you guys in terms of how you deal with clients, in terms of how you talk to clients, and the kind of work you're doing with them? Has there been a flight to quality? A lot of people talk about that when there's tougher times, that it sort of shakes out all of the projects that probably shouldn't have existed in the first place. Like, what are you seeing in terms of the changes, if any, or is it everything just being sort of over, is just crypto winter such a good tagline for an article, such clickbait that everyone's just repeating it? In reality, everything's still good.
Yeah. In terms of crypto winter, when we went through this in 2017, 2018, it was different. It's different this time around because there's so much, one, capital, but also two, people really believe this and know that this is going to be the future technology. And so builders are going to build, and actually it's a healthy pace now where the violent markets going up and down, people were chasing, mostly the funding and the profits, that it was also, causing founders to move away from their principles and kind of doing what's best to build the technology itself, and more selling hype and storytelling than actually building that creates value. And so in terms of business itself, we're just as busy as ever. And right now, yes, we have noticed this, the attraction of talent and quality from the Web2 world, where these very talented game developers, it's awesome seeing, a very famous developer that once made, one of the top playable mobile apps and games is now getting into the Web3 space. We also are talking to, one of the largest film directors for, in the movie studios, now wants to build an NFT blockbuster movie. And they're using this technology of choice. And it's just incredible, the talent that we're seeing coming into the space, regardless of the markets and pricing, and just, from the people that we know of, whether, Ethereum's in the I don't know, 2000s, or whether it's going to be in the 20,000s for them, they're always going to be building whatever technology is needed.
So it sounds like just as busy, but potentially then maybe new applications, or they're still trying to innovate and find new ways to get involved. Is that a fair summary, Jeff?
Yes, and by far the blockchain activity right now is dominated by gaming. And if you ask around the crypto NFT community, what is going to be the biggest use case, most people would say that it's going to be that gaming application. And so for us, that's where we're kind of doubling down and helping out the ecosystem.
Are there any areas of aversion or maybe, potential failures or just areas that former marketing or former efforts didn't yield as profitable of an ROI or as beneficial of an outcome as expected that you're noticing clients are like, hey, let's not do that type of campaign anymore. Let's go here instead.
Yeah, so I can share on this one. Um, so with this bear market, it's so previously a lot of projects were pushing the FOMO extremely hard. It was kind of this greater fool's theory, right? So you invest, you buy the tokens, and you hope that the next guy, the guy or girl comes in, is going to buy it at a higher price. And it was like, get in now before the next round comes out. And that was really, really, that was a lot of the mentality behind these big campaigns, right? It was like, be the first one to get this NFT because, hey, next week it's gonna go up, and then they're gonna do an airdrop, and it's gonna go up again. It's like that was the thinking behind a lot of the campaigns. Ever since the bear market, that has gone out the door, and people are now looking at projects that are building something, but building something that could have a potential multiplier effect. So if you invest into this project, you buy their token, you buy their NFT, you're buying into an ecosystem that's not just going to be, you know, the next person buys it at a higher price. It's what utility am I getting? Why does the industry need this? And where's it going? Like it's not just like what I was saying earlier, like people aren't just selling and buying projects simply because they think someone's going to buy it at a higher price. Now they're looking for, is this game actually going to be developed? So a lot of the campaigns that we're working with right now, it's like it's more focused on, all right, who are your teams? Have they done it? Have they done it? Have they been there, done it? And then even on the game side, I can tell you 6 months ago, a cool avatar was enough to get your project, in the headlines. But now investors and users are saying, where's the beta footage? Where's the gameplay demo? Can we get access to the alpha environment, beta environment? People are asking these types of questions. So a lot of the projects that we're working with, we're kind of advising them the same way. It's like, you have to build more because, people want to see that, they always say bear market is for builders, but are you really building, or are you just raising money and you're going to jump the moment the money's in? So people are looking at these things more than before.
I mean, this sounds like a really good news story then, right? Like it avoids a lot of really bad games or games that maybe never even see the light of day, right? Which is even worse, that the project doesn't actually get finished or ever get to completion. So it sounds like this is a good development for the industry, right? It's a positive thing in some ways.
Yeah. And it's a shakeout. Like there's a lot of projects that maybe didn't have the right intention or didn't have the right team. And now that their token values are so down, like they're either, they have to close up shop or they have to repivot. So in my opinion, it's kind of a big reality check to the industry. And I think it's a good thing overall because
But you guys are well positioned too, because it sounds also like the FOMO became like what mattered, and not just FOMO became sort of community, right? Like how many people actually care about this game seeing the light of day, for example, actually care about owning the NFT or the token, and actually care to be a part of whatever they're building, versus we sort of don't care whatever the underlying asset is, as long as we can flip it to someone for more money.
Exactly.
Right. So you in some ways from what you're saying, it sounds like there's not just a flight to quality, there's a flight to community.
Exactly. And these communities are also rallying up, and they're saying kind of the growth of the whole alpha group. It's these community groups that kind of formed around projects that they really love. And I'll give you an example, like Yield Guild Games. So Yield Guild Games, like it's a gaming guild. So think of it as kind of a union for gamers, right? So they have, in a way, the amount of users that they have is kind of their buying power. So now they're collectively investing in games that they feel like, adds to the entire ecosystem, adds value, is a very interesting, fun to play game. So we're seeing kind of these communities they're called alpha groups, they're called, guilds, but they're kind of the ones deciding where, the money's going to go, where investment dollars are going to go. So the industry is kind of self-regulating in that, yeah, these groups are they're either buying into projects, they're bringing in users into these projects, but they're also promoting it. So that's really what's happening right now.
Guys, I want to ask sort of one question here before we get to everyone's favorite new segment with our own Judge Jimmy. But what is the one piece of advice? We get a lot of people who listen to our podcast. Obviously, we get a lot of gaming professionals, people who work in the industry, things like that. But it's a lot of people also who are looking to get into it, right? And want to take advantage of what we all sort of agree is the future. What is the advice you would give to someone that's sort of on the fence? Maybe they're working at a company, maybe they're thinking of starting their own thing, but has seen sort of the general downturn but buys into the vision of Web3 gaming and the intersection of crypto and gaming and all these kinds of things and metaverses. What would be your advice to those people in terms of getting started today in what we all agree is maybe more of a bear market?
For my own personal advice would be, it's whatever it is that you are already interested in. There is probably a Web3 project that exists. So say, for example, the other day, there was a sleep to earn NFT. I was like, wow, I love sleeping. And so, and so how do you get involved? So the piece of advice would be, you can actually join their community, join their Discord, join their Twitter, become a moderator, host a session, talk about the vision of how NFTs is incentivizing behavior that could help you be healthier and live a better life. Or maybe on the gaming side, just there's a number of games and new projects that are out there. And the first thing that we see, step one, is to join the community and be actively engaged in there. Test out their demos, give feedback, volunteer as much as you can. There's a number of great conferences and events, both in person and virtual, that you can really get your hands dirty. And then you're going to start meeting people, and opportunities are going to just, be endless.
Many of them you guys host, by the way. You put on some great webinars and some great events, which I consider amazing starting points for people. So
yeah, I'd like to answer that advice too. So it's almost piggybacking on what Jeff said. So with, I guess, the whole Web3, this whole crypto movement, there's access to the founders that has never been available before. Like, for example, can I get, Phil from Xbox? Can I jump on a community and just listen to him chat on Twitter Spaces? Maybe now actually, because they're being more proactive. But my gosh, a few years ago, no way. You'll never get his audience, nor can you chat with his senior game developers, right? But in the Web3 space, that is at the core of every project. It's the community, and it's open. So if my advice, and people have asked me this all the time, how do I get into the space? Just jump into the communities. It's literally an exercise in decentralization, and people are just they're looking for help. They're eager to share. It's kind of the ethos of the whole Web3 community. It's like, hey, these projects are out there for you. Contribute to, get involved. And who knows, you literally could be one Discord chat away from the founder. And if you want to get involved, that's unprecedented amount of access is what you're getting right now.
I love this, guys. Such fantastic advice for our audience. Jimmy, I don't know if you had anything else before we pivot here to everyone's favorite new segment. As everyone knows, it's Judge Jimmy's cross-examination. The way this works, if you're new here, Judge Jimmy's going to ask a few rapid-fire questions to both of you, Jeff and Ivan, and the idea is to get to know you a bit better as people, as gamers, as business people, get to know a little bit sort of the behind the scenes. They're easy questions, I promise. Judge Jimmy, take it away.
Can I object? I'm just kidding.
You absolutely can object. You would be the first, but I welcome it. I don't think you'll object to these.
Jimmy's a very good lawyer, so I don't know if you want to go down that path.
Let's see. First one, guys, and then we'll go Ivan, then Jeff, and then Jeff, then Ivan, so we can go back and forth. And you guys alluded to this in the intro portion. Favorite game of all time?
Oh, of all time. Oh, all time would be Mario Kart 64.
Solid.
Good game. Good pick.
It is. Jeff, how about
when you nail that Rainbow Road shortcut,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Feels like you're in the clouds.
Bomberman.
Oh, you guys are
Interesting.
pulling some
First
old
time I've
school
heard that
games in
one.
here. Yeah, that's solid. Since
It's such a great
Ivan
game, actually. It was my favorite Nintendo game.
Bomberman, Paul.
Yeah, really good.
Just since Ivan drew on that or fixated on the clarification, starting with you, Jeff, and going back. Now we'll go favorite game that you're currently playing.
So, go ahead, Jeff. You're first.
Yep, Jeff.
Gosh, business, like literally.
Great irony of doing anything in and around the gaming industry. No one has time to play games.
Ivan, how about you?
So for me, it's so funny. My wife is like, why are you spending money on these video games when you have so little time to play? And I'm like, but you have to figure it out. Like there's game mechanics that are new with every generation of games. Like you have to learn these things if you're going to be relevant. So most recently, I played the game Stray. And if you know the story, it's a fascinating story and how they use influencers to kind of build a community. So I'm kind of playing it from multiple angles, but that was a very, personally, a very fun game. Surprisingly more fun than I expected.
I'm going to ask you more about that after the show because I've been wanting to play that one for a minute and I want to get some deeper takes here. All right, last question for both of you guys. This one's a little bit more broader. And if I don't list an IP, feel free to add one if you're like, oh, actually, I like prefer this IP, this community. But on the show, we talk a lot about Marvel, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, etc. All these different great brands that have TV shows and movies and storytelling games and mobile games, etc. From a community first perspective, which brand, which IP, which game, etc., do you guys believe has the strongest community supporting them? We'll start with you.
And it could be Web3.
Could be Web3. Yeah. Again, if I didn't list one, you feel free to throw one in there.
Which publisher?
Not
or project.
Project in a more broader sense. Yeah.
Oh, this is a hard one. Because you have the throwbacks, right? You have the World of Warcraft communities that are just like they live forever.
They don't die.
They don't die. Let's see.
They die eventually.
I would say it's like some of those like the Dota communities, the ones that have the massive esports following, like StarCraft, and those with the massive prize monies. I think with those prize monies, they bring on like the fascination of a new generation, and they keep those competitions going. So I would say like those types of games.
Quick shout out, by the way, to Enthusiast Gaming and Adrian Montgomery, right, Paul, on the show a number of months ago talking about their first Dota tournament, and that's what kind of launched Enthusiast, and they never looked back because of the support of that community and how outrageous that weekend live event was. So just wanted to drop that anecdote.
Is particularly rabid. Also because you need like a PhD to even understand the game.
That's one of our questions when we hire people. It's like, what game do you play? And like when it's Dota, I'm always like, you got it. You get it. And you're OG, right? You're original.
Jeff, how about you? Favorite community, favorite IP?
Marvel, hands down. And so we're actually speaking to one of the previous executives at Marvel, and that's going to be launching an IP using NFT technology and recreating the magic. And so that was one of the projects I have to stay under NDA, but we are talking to one of the previous executives there, and it's just incredible, the fan base.
That's cool. Yeah,
really great.
Jeff is one of those Marvel fanboys too.
I mean, they did create an incredible universe.
They did. That's it for me, guys. Cross-examination, prosecution rests, I suppose. So back to you, Paul.
Guys, for those, I think there's so many companies, brands, projects that could all benefit from what you guys do. Like for any one of our listeners who are interested in following you guys and reaching out, how do you want to be followed, found, etc.? Like, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is, we have a website, crowdcreate.us. We have the socials like Twitter. We have a YouTube channel where we push a lot of our content. So some of those conferences that you spoke of earlier, we publish them all for free. because it's just, educate the world and you'll make the world a better place. And our social handles on Twitter, Instagram, and all those.
And I think the numbers speak for itself. I'm taking this from your website, guys. Like, you've raised $250 million for the projects you've worked with. You've reached 7 million people, in the projects you've done, 500 successful projects. And like I said, I wasn't exaggerating. Literally the who's who of the gaming and crypto and Web3 world in terms of your clients. I really, really encourage everyone to reach out if you're at all interested in this space. And thank you guys for being on the show. It was amazing. So many great insight. We could probably have done 4 more episodes like this because we didn't even tap into half the things on my notes here. But really appreciate you guys being on the show. Jimmy, thank you as always. And just a little bit of housekeeping for our listeners. Don't forget, make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it. We put a bunch of content on all these platforms. It's different from the podcast and the live stream. Speaking of the live stream, Jimmy mentioned it. Wednesdays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's live. It's all the gaming news from the week. It's a lot of fun. You get to disagree with me, which you'll be wrong, but you get to try. And I promise it's a lot of fun. And don't forget the most important thing, guys. The future is fun. We'll see you next week.